Smash that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up on the like.
Fat in the diet has nothing to do with the cholesterol.
Dr. Q, if we go viral on this, you might need to go on Good Morning America or something like that.
That's all right. In my mind, to give a statin drug without giving a CoQ10 is a malpractice.
What are the 3 daily practices you believe every person should integrate into their lives?
The system is broken.
So my question is, with all the modern medicine, diagnostics and all that, where do we stand as a nation? We have become a very sick nation. Doctors mean well, but they don't have the tools which they can guide the people to optimal wellness or guide them to make lifestyle changes. My ultimate mission, if you call what my mission is, basically to make drug-free America, to make America drug-free. 1 out of 2, 50% of the population is pre-diabetic or they have insulin resistance. One of the key drug which causes dementia is commonly used and almost given to every patient who walks in is a PPI, proton pump inhibitors. So-called scientific medicine, traditional medicine, is in my mind a lot of unscientific. Interesting research shows 75% of the people who died with a heart attack, cholesterol was not high. One of the brilliant cardiologists, Atkins, 60, 70 years ago, challenged the American Medical Association, challenged the American College of Cardiology that fat is good for you, prove me wrong, and nobody has ever been able to do. They have done studies on his diet, and they have done studies on the American Heart Association diet, and his diet is the only one which lowers the triglycerides, lowers the cholesterol. Cholesterol is the most potent antioxidant body produces. Aryans, people who live over 100 years old, they had one common factor among them. They had all high cholesterol.
So in my mind, high cholesterol leads to plaque buildup in our arteries. Is that
scientifically? It can't be proven. 75% of the autopsies, people who died with a certain heart attack didn't have high cholesterol.
This is the FarmBoys podcast with Dr. Q, Dr. Qutab. Take 5.
The way that Dr. Q approaches medicine, Dr. Q has the training as a doctor, but he also uses common sense.
Yeah.
And he doesn't go along with the bullshit.
Yeah.
And the trends and the hype.
6 in 10 people have chronic illness. 250 million people are overweight. 300 million, that's majority of the population, is basically metabolically not healthy. That means either they're borderline diabetic or they have insulin resistance. 1 in 2 person you meet in life are pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. 40% of the children in our nation is overweight. 22% are obese. 20% of our young people are on antidepressants.
This is the FarmBoys podcast with Dr. Q, Dr. Qutab at drqswellness.com. Take 5.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Abbas Qutab. I'm in Massachusetts. I'm close to Boston. I have been in practice since literally 1989, so a long time. And I was trained in traditional medicine as an MD. Then I changed my profession. I left my traditional medicines in 1993, and I got into more holistic natural medicine. And I've got also degrees in Oriental medicine from Tokyo, Japan. And I've got Doctor of Chiropractic degree also from Palmer College. And I did my PhD in Ayurvedic medicine, which is an Indian form of medicine. I like the philosophy and the origin of it's the mother of all medicines in a sense, which all the systems grew. So with all that background, I put together clinics. I was running clinics in Massachusetts, in Worcester County, in Worcester, Massachusetts, and Boston. And Boston, the clinic which I had is next to Mass General, MGH, which is the Mecca of medicine. That's the oldest and the most prominent hospital. My clinic was right in their own facility in Charles River Park. And I never had an issue with them. I had actually a lot of physicians and their families as patients. My philosophy is very patient-centered. If I have to see, I combine basically, I still use modern diagnostics. I do lab works, I do, and the lab testings and all that. And then we basically, my preference is people choose natural cures because I believe they are safer, they are effective. And that's how we build up a We used to use the word alternative medicine, complementary medicine, functional. Now we use the word functional medicine is more popular word now, which means actually basically to improve your using your own innate ability of the body, you improve the functions of the body and physiological functions. So I've been in practice of literally thousands and thousands of patients. Almost 40-50% of my patients are out of Massachusetts. They come from all over. Okay. And I also have patients, international patients who fly in to see me for different services. And our team has been with me. Some of the people who work with me has been with me for 30 plus years, 35 years. And we are doing our best to help people guide on the right path.
What are the 3 daily practices you believe every person should integrate into their lives?
I would go back to my good supplement regimen. Diet has to be organic foods more as much as you can try to choose, because the organic foods has a higher nutrient value than the non-organic. Avoid non-GMOs, avoid genetically modified things, decrease the sugar amount. And the last thing I would do is some sort of spiritual practice, whether it's your going to the church or going so you can have a support network, or doing a meditation practice. Fourth week, I have to add exercise.
And Logan, this is something you and I have not spoken about, I don't think, ever. And we've talked a lot, obviously. It sounds like you're not in favor of GMOs, Doc. Being a farmer, previously a farmer, I should say, but still working in the ag realm, I'm not sure how I feel about GMOs. Convince me, Doc, why GMOs are either good or bad.
Simple studies, Chris. I'll be happy to send you the studies. The feed fed to the pigs, which is GMO based, messes up their gut lining, their hormones, their endocrinology. So the gut lining produces more dysbiosis and leaky gut, and they develop more obesity. They develop more unhealthy body. So genetically modified diet has been tested on the animal kingdom also, and they do affect it. Now, naturally, it's a very complicated topic, because if everybody starts feeding non-GMO, I don't think so there will be enough food to feed everybody.
Right.
Basically,
so is GMOs never a good option?
No, it's not. It's not. I never say no, because in reality, it can't be practically. You can't feed the world on that. But they should be local farmers, non-GMO farmers should be encouraged also the same way as the GMO farming is encouraged. As the GMO farmer, if you're a GMO farmer, it's easy to get loans for your machinery, for your each crop, basically. But the non-GMOs are tough to get them. So we should have government policies to support that system. That's how you make a change. So we need to have politicians who are more interested in supporting that network than just developing as an industrialized GMO model. So it's totally can't be eliminated. It'll be impractical thinking that way. But we should encourage it. So your diet could be, buying from the local farmers which are growing organic farming. So I'm doing a little as much as I can in my own practice, but can I tell my patient totally don't buy anything else? No, that will be not a practical thing to do. But we should start supporting these non-GMO crops and all that more, as much as we can.
What's your opinion? Honestly, Logan, forget about the antithesis. We've never talked about this. Yeah, I find it hard to be able to feed the world without having genetically modified to be able to grow, right?
Well, I think there are different ways. I think there are different alternatives. I think with so much of the driver here, it's all based on the monetary benefit for people. Mm-hmm. And so just in my upbringing and my exposure to some of this, like there's some fascinating things that are going on with like indoor or vertical farming where you can control the elements, if you will, in a natural way that, this includes, there was a company here locally where I live in the greater Salt Lake City market where they were growing different crops indoors. I grew up on a family farm, and on the commercial farm, we used, fertilizers, we used pesticides to grow great crops, and the crops for the most part, I mean, we grew some very, good crops,
Yeah.
but we also had a large garden that we'd grow every year as a family. And we also raised our own beef. That beef was by far, in my opinion, some of the best beef that I've eaten anywhere in my life.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the fresh fruits and vegetables that were growing out of our garden you can't beat it. And so the quality was incredible. And we weren't using a lot of extras there.
Doc, I don't want to come off like you're total against GMOs or whatever.
No.
I don't want it to come off like that.
No, absolutely
it's a
not.
real,
You have to have a common sense. And the
Yeah.
pesticide is an issue. There's so much research on that. We can have a whole show on the pesticide and the contaminants on that. So, but it's a complicated topic. How you feed the rest of the world. I agree with that.
Right.
So the GMO, genetically modified organisms, is an advanced science and really has produced enough food to supply the rest of the world. So if you take that out, basically, you can't. I don't think so. Right now, we have the technology to feed the rest of the world.
Right.
I understand that. So, but we also need to encourage to the non-GMO projects and non-GMO. That maybe there should be happy meeting somewhere.
Agreed. Yeah. No. And I didn't want to necessarily. Because we are a Farm Boy show, I thought, well, this is a great topic.
I think I think one of the biggest factors is not focusing on the financial benefit being the number one driver. I think it's the same thing with medicine too, Dr. Q.
Absolutely.
Just like you were saying, like doctors are incentivized to see as many patients as they can and spend the least amount of time with them because that is more profitable.
Chris, can we make GMO, even if we keep the GMO model as it is, can we rely on more pesticides which are safer for us compared to the way we do standard now?
Can we?
We need to do more research into that, right?
Yes, I agree, totally agree.
That could be the mutual, can be that GMO, I understand, is essential for more, solid crop growing, healthier crop growing and all that. But what about looking into how to produce more safe organic compounds, more basically the pesticides? I think there could be, that's not the GMO, the ultimate problem. The problem could be the pesticides, the way they are abused, basically.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. This is the third edition of the Farm Boys podcast lightning round with Dr. Q, Logan, and myself. And we're going to ask Dr. Q here 10 questions. And he's just going to rattle them off, and then we'll build off of that. So first question here, Dr. Q, what's the most underrated holistic health practice?
The essential, I will call it an essential, which is a part of the holistic practice, will be a daily supplementation routine, which should be very healthy, which I talked earlier, a multivitamin, a fish oil. Fish oil, you have to be 100% sure the dosing is the right. You need to have 2,000 milligram of EPA and about 1,200 milligram of DHA in the capsules you take, and there are commercially good products available. Then you have a probiotic, because your microbiome runs your life, runs your health, runs your information, everything else. So daily probiotic is essential. And taking some sort of a supplement or in our clinic, we use protein powders which are designed for liver detox. I'm big on that because the environmental exposures people to unhealthy lifestyles and all that. So these type of basic things are essential for that.
Okay. One daily habit that can transform your health.
One daily habit, I personally think stress-free living, finding a peace with yourself, whether it is through your faith or through your meditation, that is essential.
Okay. Now this one, we're not going to get in trouble here, but Western medicine or holistic medicine, can you choose only one?
I would absolutely choose holistic medicine. Okay. At my age, 99.9% of my colleagues have all retired. I'm still working and plan to work another decade, and I'm personally not on any medication.
Nice. Favorite natural remedy for stress relief?
Facial remedy, I think this natural remedy, we can go into so many things, as supplements are concerned, but I think
what is your
finding a meditation practice, some sort of meditation or walking, whichever helps you to release stress, that will be essential.
Okay. What's the biggest myth about holistic health?
The biggest myth of holistic health is that it's basically not scientific based, which is a bunch of baloney and bullshit, because there's more science. You can go on NIH.government's site and Google into any vitamin, any herb, and you'll see the research amount of it. So it's totally not valid. It's 100% scientific based because there's so much research coming up. And then supplements are not regulated. That's also a myth which all doctors, my own colleagues tell me, oh, they're not regulated. I tell them that's not true, because the CGMP manufacturing facilities, which are basically manufacture vitamins and supplements, they're all regulated by the FDA. So these are all FDA regulated guidelines which are set up. It's the same guidelines which basically regulate your pharmaceutical manufacturing and the vitamin guidelines. It's all the same. The third thing is, a lot of people don't know, all the doctors depend on PDR, physician desk reference, right? That's their drug Bible. But there's the PDR on vitamins and PDR on herbal medicines. So if the government recognizes it, then the myth should be eliminated by that all it's a scientific base, and they are supplements are regulated, and there are bad apples in any industry. If you look at reality, more drug recalls happen than the vitamins. But we basically, you take a legit company, you take a good company, and it'll be a good thing.
Okay. What's your go-to advice for better sleep?
That you need to have a routine. Sleep is a complicated topic. I do sleep study on that. So it is a complicated topic. But L-theanine, something which relaxes you, L-theanine is a good product to try. But basically, melatonin is a good product to try. I designed actually a probiotic with melatonin. I had designed it with 3 milligrams of melatonin. But the most important is to finding a routine pattern in which you basically stick to that, and breathing exercises, meditation, all these things can be part of it.
What's one food you think everyone should avoid?
That's a good question. Because you're talking of thousands and anything basically, like in the form of snacks and candy. Sugar, I think, let me call it sugar.
Okay.
Because we have been 1 in 2 people are pre-diabetes or insulin resistant. So if we reduce the sugar in our amount of foods, or declare it exactly how much sugar is in a warning label on each food, that can change people's national health.
2 questions left. What is the most effective way to boost your immunity naturally?
Stress-free living. Okay, stress kills the immune system. But basically, the 4 essential elements which are gave, if your overall health is good, then you basically will keep healthier. And also the sugar, the higher sweets and candies and sugars you take suppress the immunity basically. And that's what you see actually, that after the Halloween and all that, all the candies and everything, then people and how many children and everybody starts getting sick after that. So the sickness bottles, I think it's reducing the sugar will be the key thing here too.
Last one. What is the future of healthcare in one word?
Future of healthcare, unless the people like me get more and more and more doctors are trained in that, it's a bleak, because the statistics don't support that we are going on the right track. So there are thousands and thousands of doctors, MDs, chiropractors, naturopaths who are same model the way I work. So it's not I'm the only one out there, but who are working to prevent that. So it's basically the key will be to get educated into the proper form of healthcare. Like even Logan mentioned a book which he read. So the more education you give to the people, that's the way to approach it.
What do you think some common mistakes are that people make when they're trying to improve their health holistically? What are the common mistakes? How can they avoid those mistakes? Let's say I want to, in my mind, and I don't want to give you the answer here, but it kind of popped up, like, I want to get off pills like you said, so I'm just going to stop without talking to my doctor, and I'm going to go straight for organic food. I'm assuming that would be a mistake.
That would be a mistake. Basically, you do need to set up an appointment with a holistic type doctor, functional medicine doctors. So you need that because coming up prescriptions can be life threatening, or it could be, something which is essential. So there are times which, even with all my experience and years and seeing thousands of patients all over the world, I'm not able to take them off the medications. But my goal is to minimize the medications they're on. But do not take, if you're on a prescription drug, stay on that unless you're able to see a doctor who is expert in functional medicine, who understands the pharmaceuticals, and then is able to guide it. No, I won't advise on that.
Okay. Here's something you said that could be a bit of a topic. If I remember right, I don't want to misquote you. You said that we don't get enough nutrients from the raw food we eat that we should supplement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What do you say to people who say, no, he's got it wrong. We do get the nutrients and all we need. You don't need to supplement.
No, the studies, you can Google it yourself. The studies with the nutrition depletion soil are based on USDA government studies. So it's not what I'm just saying. These are solid studies which show the nutrition depletion is there. You can start Googling and you'll start showing up all that. So the research does not justify that. I understand healthy diet is important, but to say that all the nutrients are the same as they were 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that's not true. Because keep in mind, even when you grow on a soil, you're recirculating the soil, basically, right? You're adding the nitrogen, all these things, but is it totally natural the way the nature is? It's not true. So you can come with, it's not something to argue and all that, but it's a common sense too.
Dr. Q, we didn't rotate crops every year. And there's certain crops that would deplete the soil quicker. Other crops don't deplete it as much. And so you're able to grow the same crop back to back. But over years, you're still depleting the soil. So
that is correct.
So think about this from a farmer perspective. Farmers find efficiencies doing the same thing. So if they're just specializing in one crop, they only need a certain type of equipment. They only need a certain type of harvester. They need a certain type of, they create a system of efficiency. And if they're constantly having to rotate crop to crop to crop to crop, some of the rotational crops might not be as profitable. So there's less incentive to go that way. But they also might be a little bit more intensive to harvest. And so some farmers, the easy way again there, and it's driven by the monetary benefit, is to apply the fertilizer, right? The fertilizer grows the crop. You're able to grow the crop to a certain criteria that needs to be met to sell it in certain areas. But that process depletes the ground. So the ground is getting depleted, right? And so if there was no fertilizer added to that crop's not going to grow very well, right? So it's artificially put back into the system, but it's not natural like like it would have been back when, the first time that soil is growing that specific crop. So, I mean, I've seen it. That's why the fertilizer industry is so big.
The best example of that, though, Logan, is where I'm at right now, South Dakota. Corn. Some guys, that's all they grow. Thousands of acres of corn every year on the same fields. No rotation crops, nothing.
For the reasons I just mentioned, corn is probably more profitable, right?
That's why. Now, I do know somebody pretty close to me who's going to add in beans for the first time, soybeans for the first time about 3 or 4 years. But I haven't asked him the reason, so I'm going to ask him the reason now and say, hey, why are you doing this? Is it because corn's not at a great price? Or is it because you need to put some help? I want to know the reason now. Yeah.
Anyways, I agree with Dr.
This helps to open up some discussions, right?
Yeah.
I don't have all the answers, but
right.
we somehow, like on the top government level, we need to support more, which is healthy crop growing and more organic type. Yeah. So, I mean, I can only talk about what I can do, and with my patients, I can give them choices.
When somebody wants to move from Western medicine to a more holistic approach, they've done their research, besides come into your clinic or reach out to you on your
drqwellness.com.
website,
drqwellness.com.
drqwellness.com, what would you recommend? I mean, is that first step keeping things status quo, how they are, and coming in to see
When
you?
they go on the website, they can download an intake form. Then they have to email us or they can mail us basically, and then they call the office for an appointment. And I do long distance on phone consults a lot also. I have a lot of patients who are out of US also. So I consult with WhatsApp with them or Zoom with them. But on online will be DRQ Wellness, drqwellness.com, and they can get more information what we do and what kind of services we offer and see if that fits their model. That also, to me, holistic medicine or functional medicine, it's almost like, people choose their faith. They believe in certain things, and if somebody believes in certain things, it's the same. So there is a belief model, but it's absolutely scientific based model.
So to be clear, you treat people that are not in Massachusetts.
Absolutely, I do.
Okay, awesome. So Dr. Q
And we can
Wellness.
order lab work. If the only thing is I don't take insurance, that's one of the things which also we needed to go into it. One of the reasons the functional medicine, holistic medicine is different. It doesn't take a third party payment, which is out of pocket, basically. So I can order lab tests. I can send a lab, to you, a requisition form, which you can go to your local labs and do it. But in our case, clinic, all the services which we offer are out of pocket.
drqwellness.com. Q is in quiet. How do you say your last name again, Doctor?
Qutab, Qutab, Dr. Qutab. But
Qutab,
most of my
okay.
patients call me Dr. Q.
Dr. Q. That's how Logan addressed you, and that's what I will call you.
Chris, one of the things people have to understand with all the advancements in the modern medicine people rely on, but the reality is the state of our health of this nation. We are 48, we think of our healthcare system which we deliver, that it's the best in the world. It's not true, because we are 48% in life expectancy in the world. Our delivery of healthcare, so-called modern medicine, basically is we like 46, 47th in the world right now, how we stand. So when you look at the picture, and a lot of this picture got more clear with the COVID, the whole system fell apart. So when you look at this picture, there's something wrong. And I think there's a lot of educated people who are well educated, who are researching on their own, and they're looking for services which are more natural to them and which fit their lifestyle. Because a traditional medical doctor, when I was in med school, we are not trained actually to give nutritional advice. An average medical school in US is about 10 to 12 hours of nutrition. That's all they learn. So the thing which is more essential in life for you, you're going to your primary care, you're going to a specialist, he or she has no clue how to guide you. And the traditional medicine is basically, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all is about, finances. It's based on the financial model in which how many patients you can see in an hour, how quickly you can get them in and out. And if you have been in practice for several years as a physician, you realize that most of the patients coming to you is like a revolving door. You give them a medication, the side effects produces problems, then they come back to you for another medication, you give them more and more. And time the American is about 65, 70, they're on 13 or 14 prescriptions. And all these prescriptions, how they are working with each other, no, it's an open debate, but we already know that it's a sick society. So that is where the type of people who look for my kind of services are the ones who are more middle class, upper middle class, educated, looking for taking responsibility of their own healthcare. And they're looking for me. I can call myself a physician or a coach because I'm there. Once we analyze their lab works, when we analyze their stool testings, we do hormonal panels, all these panels we come out with a program which is more safer and effective for them.
Dr. Q, that's some heavy information. And this is the kind of stuff why I love Dr. Q, because to me, it makes complete sense, right? The system is broken.
Absolutely.
And so you threw out some stats there that were significant. I started writing down a little bit late, but 300 million people
Are basically metabolically not healthy. That means they're borderline diabetics, they're borderline some condition, physical condition going on. 6 out of 10 people you see, out of 10 people you see on the street, 6 of them are in chronic health condition, some sort of chronic health condition. So my question is, with all the modern medicine, diagnostics and all that, where do we stand as a nation? We have become a very sick nation. And that is where those people, the 4 people out of these 10, they are wise enough to look for alternatives, to look for them, which is more beneficial to them instead of creating more complications and medical side effects. Another stat I'll give you, over the prescriptions given by the physicians, licensed physician, kill over 130 to 140,000 people a year. So imagine living in a society where that almost the number one reason of the deaths is due to the prescription medicines which are given by the doctors. And it's not doctors mean well. Doctors mean well, but they don't have the tools which they can guide the people to optimal wellness or guide them to make lifestyle changes.
What are those tools, Dr. Q, that they don't have?
The tools, unfortunately, what the physician can do is what the hospital they work with. So even a lot of the physicians I talk to who come to me as patients or who have been trained by me, in their own practices, they're not allowed to talk about nutrition. They're not allowed to talk about vitamins. They're not allowed to talk about, because the liability insurance doesn't cover them. See, basically it's a money-based model. So basically if you look at the game behind that, the pharmaceutical industry funds the hospital. They funds the residents are trained in a way that basically they come out and as pill pushers. All they do is the people have funded their education, people have funded the institutions. They are pumping all the money so they can be prescribed. So it's all about, ultimately comes down to revenues. But within that, you got a lot of smart consumers who are educated, and they are looking at that basically there are other alternatives available. And they look for people like me who are providing them that basically. I've been in practice. I have been, my ultimate mission, if you call what my mission is, basically to make drug-free America. That's basically to make America drug-free. There's no way you can accomplish that 100%, but that should be our goal. Because if you look at even Hippocrates' oath, first do no harm. So a lot of the time when we are giving medications, they are creating more complications than they are. I understand in emergency, there are medications which are essential. And I don't deny that. In an ER medicine, in emergency medicine, we have come a long way, that basically in emergency care. But when you're looking at chronic health situation in US, people are living in chronic pain, people are living with depression, people are living with arthritis, 1 out of 2, 50% of the population is pre-diabetic or they have insulin resistance. That means they're all going to be burden on the system. We do spend $5 trillion on our healthcare. That's bigger than all the Western nations put together. But the delivery is 48th in the world. So there's something we need to analyze it. And I think it's not the stats I'm giving. A lot of our population, people are smarter now and they're looking for wiser solutions.
So, Dr. Q, I just want to put a couple of things in perspective for people out there. First is, you mentioned your schooling as you're talking about the different education that you've gone through that you have. Does that make you a doctor times 4? We need to put a doctor times 4 behind your...
I was basically, when I was in my residency, I was not happy what I was doing. I always felt that the stats which I'm giving, I saw them. I saw the people with the drug reactions. I saw to the colleagues, and I always used to think there has to be a better way. How come we can't spend extra 10, 15 minutes in giving some lifestyle changes? How come we can't talk about nutrition? How can't we give them? There are natural alternatives. But in that model, when you're in, it does not allow you to be yourself, to do that way. So that, and any physician who has been in practice for a long time, especially in primary care medicine, they realize basically they're creating a model in which they're creating more and more sick people. But the problem is in our system, the way we have created sickness pays. The insurance because majority of the people want the insurance to cover their services, but the insurance doesn't pay for it. That how to keep yourself healthy.
You mentioned 130 to 140,000 people die from, what was it?
By the prescription drugs given by given by the physicians. So these are due to the drug side effects, people die.
Okay, so prescription drug related.
Simple. Let's use a simple language. Prescription drugs which are given to save mankind, but also kill 130 to 140,000 people just in US alone. That's a number. That's more than car accidents and all that. That's ultimately, if you look at the total stats, and honestly, you're looking at the highest amount of people dying with things which they are supposed to be taking to save their lives.
So here, I'm going to put this into in just so this really hits home for people. So in the Korean War, there was just over 36,000 people that died. In the Vietnam War, there was just over 58,000. These are Americans, 58,000 Americans that died. World War I was 116,000. World War II was just over 400,000. So even if you're looking at World War II, over 400,000 Americans died in World War II. This is huge. In 3 years, the prescription drug industry is basically killing as many people as died in World War II.
Absolutely. And some has to do with the stupidity of people. They don't question the drug. They don't question the physician or physician. If they question the physicians are so insecure that they get wired up, basically, so that people follow whatever the doctors tell them. People need, I educate. One of the things which I do in my practice is we educate. When my patients tell me that they are researching into all this, they're looking into all this, I said, absolutely, you should. Because basically the same thing which physicians look at, Medline, Medscape, Medline Plus, and all the research database for anything, they are also, the patients have the same access. Your telephone right now has an access. You can go on Google search and find out everything. And the education, the more the educated the patient, it's better for them. The problem is doctor doesn't encourage that. And that's where there are a lot of things need to be fixed in the system, in which if you prevention is absolutely number one. Let's talk of prevention, but how do you make prevention apply in their life? By educating them. You cannot, if you're making a mentality the way the medical model works, you're making a mindset of take a pill and that will solve your problem. But they don't tell you the pill has a problem. Simple, look at the memory issues. Dementia has gone up. One of the key drug which causes dementia is commonly used and almost given to every patient who walks in is a PPI, proton pump inhibitors, commercial name, to shut down their acid. Common sense, years ago I said when you get older, your stomach actually acid weakens down, so shutting it more down doesn't make sense. And especially when you shut down the HCl production, you can't break down proteins. You can't produce nitric oxide because you need the HCl to produce nitric oxide. So just these two chemical reactions will have a devastating effect. And that's now some of the research is showing up. The other way to look at all this is, if you want to know if the drug is good or not good pharmaceutical, go on Google search and see the lawsuits against them. Every day there are thousands of cases going on with major lawsuits. Every major drug which in the last 2 decades or 3 decades, which was number one, has a lawsuit against it. So ultimately shows you, it's not that I'm anti-drug. There is a time for it. But ultimately what you mentioned, the gentleman who's written the book, basically to start creating a preventative lifestyle, doing lifestyle changes, or telling people the first option should be more natural to try. If it doesn't work, then you go for the pharmaceutical. That's the only way we can solve our problem. Diet, people usually when they ask me, is diet important? Absolutely it is. But the unfortunate part of the whole diet is, you got most of the diet is industrialized based, commercial, which people buy with all these colored vegetables and all that, but it lacks nutrition. The nutrients are lacking. Magnesium, which is involved in about 800 reactions in the body, 98% of vegetables don't carry enough magnesium. So that is why when somebody asks me, what is your model of health? I put supplementation number one. Everybody should be on a daily multivitamin. Everybody should be on a fish oil. Everybody should be in a probiotic. Everybody should be on something which cleans up the liver for the environmental and all these toxins. We can complicate this subject a lot, but basically there are some factors which you need to do to improve the overall health.
Say
Are
that
you
one more-
saying everything is based upon our diet nutrition then? We would be a disease-free world if we had nutrition and dietary intelligence?
If we had the dietary intelligence, absolutely we will. We can't be disease-free world because there are some factors, genetic factors and all these things, but we'll save a lot of people. The problem is like in Massachusetts, I'm in Massachusetts, it's a universal healthcare system. So a lot of population is on mass health. That means the government gives them a coupon to housing coupon, food coupon, but majority of these people, there's no education attached with that. So what do? Most of these people eat junk food. So if we really have an ideal society and teach from high school onward a proper nutrition, but we need to also keep in mind when we talk the diet is essential, the problem is the diet is lacking basic nutrients. A lot of the nutrients in our soil, industrialized soil, it lacks nutrients. So where do you get them? That's where you need supplementation. There's an interesting study which was done some years ago. It would show just all the costs in Europe. This was a European study. Do you take a multivitamin or not? The people who took multivitamin, their morbidity and mortality was 10% difference from the people who didn't take it. In reality, it became about 14 years for women and 10 years for men longevity. So just by not taking a multivitamin can make a big difference. Fish oil I mentioned. Look at the study. Fish oil we use for lipids, improving the lipids, triglycerides, and cholesterol panel. There's a study with 275,000 people in which they took statins. They took fish oil, and they took also niacin, and they took also another medication which emulsifies the bile acids, sequestrants. The end of the study, 48% less, after you have a myocardial infarction, sudden heart attack. The people who did not get MI or didn't die sudden heart death were the people on the omega-3s, fish oils. So this shows you, and there's no lipids which can do that. There's no statins which can do that. And all the pharmaceuticals, they can't come even close to the benefits. But most of the doctors, nobody talks about it. So in my practice, we cover the foundation, nutrition, and then we cover basically what else needs to be addressed. Now, other things we can do is a lot of the lab work, in the modern, the so-called scientific medicine, traditional medicine is, in my mind, a lot of unscientific. Because a lot of the lab work, like we talk about cholesterol. Look at the lipids. Interesting research shows 75% of the people who died with a heart attack, cholesterol was not high. So cholesterol is not the primary culprit. Now, when you go to a regular annual physical, basically you get your cholesterol done, you get your HDL done, LDL done, and the ratio done, and your triglycerides, and you're done. But in a holistic practice, we look at quite a wide model. So our is more actually scientifically accurate than the so-called standard model, because we are looking at the lipid fractions. If your HDL is high, is it HDL 1 or 2? Because you can have a fake HDL high, which is not protective, and HDL 2 will be less, and then you will have a false protection. So basically the lab work which we do is more elaborate. Let me show you another thing which we do in our practice differently. When you look at a blood chemistry, people bring their blood chemistry each year, with the annual physical, you get a blood work done, and then you're looking at it, everything looks okay. The problem is it's the bell curve which we use, which means if you have a range from 0 to 200, the ideal is your 100, like the middle of the bell curve. So in our work, what I do is I take that blood chemistry. We have a software in which we can narrow the bell curve into 33% or 40%. Then we really pick up what the underlying condition is. When in modern medicine, they have all the tools, because these tools are developed by your traditional doctors. So they have all the tools, but they don't have the time, and they don't have the patience or, to go through all with the patient. It's just like the minimal you do and the more you make money. That's the model the way we are stuck in. But we do very elaborate analysis when you're looking at a holistic, with the modern diagnostic. Actually, the most modern diagnostic is done by functional medicine doctors because they do testings which really give the underlying cause of the condition and the advantages. Then you can customize the healthcare on individual basis. And that you can do it only in my type of practice because you're spending an hour, half an hour, you're spending an hour and 15 minutes with a patient. You can't do it in a set of model.
I'm on. What should I be doing?
If you're on, I have natural alternatives. You can take pure red yeast rice extract, about 2,700 milligram. Or also you can, if you want to stay with the, then you should take CoQ10. It's a natural supplement, CoQ10, because one of the main side effects of your statin is a deficiency of depleting CoQ10 out of the body, and that will start giving you muscle aches, bone aches, some of these issues. So CoQ10, how many milligrams of are you on?
20 milligrams once a day at night.
I'll take about 200 milligram of CoQ10 with that. CoQ10 should be lipid-based soluble like coquinol, ubiquinol. There are a lot of good ones out in the market, ubiquinol. So that will be an important. In my mind, to give a statin drug without giving a CoQ10 is a malpractice, because you're depleting something which they need on that.
Hey,
that's some heavy stuff, Doc.
Chris, with maybe just so people understand it a little bit more, what are you taking
lowering cholesterol?
Yeah, I have. They said, and I don't know if this is true or not. They said that it's not necessarily from my diet, Doc. They said it might be hereditary or something in me, that plaque and whatever builds up, because when they did an ultrasound on my carotid, that they had found like a buildup that was probably more than I should have for my age. So they gave that to me. So there's not so much of a plaque buildup, Logan.
Yeah, that I understand, and that's accurate. The diet alone can be the reason with the cholesterol, and you're taking it more prophylactically, which I'm okay with that. But you add CoQ10. Now, interestingly, diet. The biggest problem is when you go to the doctors, they're trained into, how to lower your cholesterol is go fat-free diet, which is totally a myth. Anecdotal. It's totally anecdotal. Fat in the diet has nothing to do with the cholesterol. One of the brilliant cardiologists, Atkins, 60, 70 years ago, challenged the American Medical Association, challenged the American College of Cardiology that fat is good for you, prove me wrong. And nobody has ever been able to do. They have done studies on his diet, and they have done studies on the American Heart Association diet. And his diet is the only one which lowers the triglycerides, lowers the cholesterol. So a lot of the time when the doctors are giving information on the dietary, some few changes and all that, that's inaccurate too. That needs to be challenged too. So there is hereditary factor. So if you're, what they call atherosclerosis or atherosclerotic arteries, you're getting the clogged arteries earlier in life, then you need to modify the cholesterol. But they could be, if you were my patient, I would be checking inflammatory markers, C-reactive proteins, apolipoproteins. All these have to be looked into. That cholesterol, think this way, Chris, cholesterol is the most potent antioxidant body produces. Cholesterol is the most potent antioxidants when we talk about, which fight free radicals. What is the number one on the top of that? Cholesterol. Synthesizes all the steroids. Every hormone is made from the cholesterol. So what happens is if you have inflammation in the arteries, then the cholesterol piles up on the top of the artery to prevent the inflammation doing damage. It's actually acting as a plaster to a weakened wall. So body is doing its best. It may block the arteries, but you have to figure out the underlying factor that if my cholesterol is high, do I have inflammatory patterns? Do I have some other reasons? This needs to be investigated.
So I don't want to go down more question about it. You mentioned that people die from prescriptions. I know people abuse and that kind of thing, or the generic brand, whatever it is, or even statins, like you said, or I would imagine one of the highest prescribed medications that we have in the United States, do statins kill?
Statins are not in that, which basically, but the rhabdomyolysis is the most dangerous form of the people with a muscle wastage. Like I have seen a patient, imagine, who made a bicep and the ligament broke, the muscle just broke. So there are conditions like that, but it's not one of those deadly ones. As long as you take CoQ10, you have to go back to the origin of that. Or original statin which came out in the industry was this is years ago, 30, 40, whatever years, and it was with the CoQ10. The problem is CoQ10 was released in the market as a natural supplement, so they could not do it. So instead of paying patients that take CoQ10 additionally, they just covered up the whole thing. And there's a whole lawsuit of this whole thing. The CoQ10 industry sued this, basically one of the big pharmaceutical giants, that how come you're adding CoQ10? But the initial research on the statin was the CoQ10 was part of it.
Dr. Q, do statins, are there any studies linked to statins and dementia?
There are some interesting studies which do on that, and that's a little complicated. Not much is known why, but the PPIs which I talked about, including statins also with the dementia, there are studies which show that. And the reason could be that the statins can lower the cholesterol too much. So you have to be very careful in that, because with age, the cholesterol needs to go up because you need more antioxidants. So lowering too much of that could be a questionable, I think. Even for women, when the cholesterol goes over 140, instead of, the lower they get, there is increase the risk of the breast cancer. Now, there is an interesting study with people with centenarians, people who live over 100 years old. They had one common factor among them. They had all high cholesterol. So we are opening a can of worms in this area. But it's fascinating. It's absolutely. Because they had one common factor. Yeah. So there are doctors within the American College of Cardiology and who believe higher cholesterol is essential. But the problem is it's all debatable. So I always say that, okay, if you don't want to go to statins, you can go on red yeast rice. That's the natural supplements. I have Lipitor, some other supplements which are plant sterols, which can improve the LDL instead of sticking to the arteries. Chris made Lipitor, which basically makes the LDL float through the arteries instead of blocking them, and you take CoQ10. So there are natural alternatives. Chris can contact me and I'll be happy to send me his blood chemistry report, and I can put together something natural if he wants.
Dr. Q, so in my mind, here's how I understand it. So correct me if this is wrong. So in my mind, high cholesterol leads to plaque buildup in our arteries. Is that
scientifically? It can't be proven. 75% of the autopsies, people who died with a certain heart attack, didn't have high cholesterol. 84% of the pathological-based specimens, pathology-based, in which basically a dead person, you cut their artery and see what is blocking, didn't have high cholesterol who died with a heart attack. So that is it. See, science is not as scientific as people think science is. It's a lot of these areas open up a can of worms. So cholesterol, if you got to figure out why the body is increasing cholesterol. If the cholesterol is an antioxidant, that means there is some sort of oxidative, some free radical stress in the body. Body is trying to cope with it. So that is all. These questions have to be answered by the proper lab testings or looking at the lab work and come out with the natural alternatives. So the simple answer is the cholesterol causing the heart disease? That's a debatable. It's not true.
So here's another question. I have
inflammation is the number one reason.
I have a couple of friends that have they said that they've got for their age, just like you mentioned, Chris, a higher level of plaque buildup in their arteries. His arteries have quite a bit of plaque buildup. He told me that the doctors told him that you can't reduce that plaque buildup. Do you know if there's any studies out there that show, is there anything that you can do to reduce that plaque buildup?
Plaque can be reduced by, there's a medical specialty, it's called chelation therapy. Chelation therapy, CHELATION. The problem is there's not enough doctors trained in that. And at one time, all the boards used to come after the doctors to get them into trouble if they did chelation therapy, but now it's pretty much accepted now. So if somebody wants to reduce the plaque, one of the legit treatments could be chelation therapy.
Is that something that
No, I don't do, because our clinic was not set up for that, basically. I used to do, but I was one of the ones who got into trouble with the medical board at that time. So I had to back it out. But now the time has changed. Time has changed. So now the chelation practices are there. They can Google chelation treatments in their own area and see if the chelation doctors are available. They use EDTA. I don't know. I can't go into the detailed science and all that, but it's like a chelating agent. Anything can be chelated. So,
Dr. Q, if we go viral on this, you might need to go on Good Morning America or something like that.
that's all right.
So let's get broad here and let's try to speak to the masses. How do you see the relationship between traditional Western medicine and holistic evolving in our environment?
Basically, the power lies with the consumer. The more consumer is demanding for holistic or functional medicine, the more they force their physicians to compromise on that, basically, or to work with the alternative medicine. So if you look at ultimately, the mind setup has to be changed, but the mindset is being changed by the consumer, because educated consumer who is looking to get more natural resources is telling their doctors that this is the choices I'm doing. And I think what was 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it has come a long way. So the functional medicine, if you go to natural courses now in natural medicines and all that, you get CME credits, continuing medical education credits. So it's being accepted more than it was years ago. So I think future looks okay. We need to create more educated people and we should be fine.
Thank you again, Doc. Appreciate your time. Would definitely love to have you on again if you're up for it. But I appreciate this, and I appreciate Logan for introducing us for sure.
My pleasure. Thank you, Logan, and thank you,
Yeah,
Chris.
so